He's the front runner. Mike Viqueira, thank you very much indeed. I want to bring in Senator Bernie Sanders now, an independent from Vermont, who joins us live from Burlington. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You have a new op-ed in The Guardian online, and you write, "The truth is that millions of Americans lost their jobs, their homes and their life savings because of the greed, recklessness and illegal behavior of Wall Street. Yet while millions of Americans, as you say, have lost their jobs and their homes, these self-same banks were bailed out by the taxpayers and they're about to start paying themselves massive year-end bonuses. How have they got away with it?"
Okay.
Well, that is the $64 question, and I think that is what these demonstrations around the country are about, and that is what the anger of the American people is about. Bail these guys out. They caused the recessions. Millions of people lose their jobs, and now these guys are doing better than they ever did before. And the answer to your question is, the simple reality is, Wall Street is the most powerful economic and political entity in the country. They have unlimited resources. They buy and sell politicians. And they have been able to protect their own interests and their own well-being.
And you know that every single time there's a Republican presidential debate, it is almost like a harmonious chorus from every single individual candidate saying what we need are fewer taxes and fewer regulations. Cut back on the regulations. That's what they keep telling us. And yet I thought that one of the reasons why we had the catastrophic circumstances of 2008 was principally because there were no regulations. Nobody was regulating the derivatives market.
Well, Martin, of course, you're absolutely right. Wall Street spent, if you can believe this, $5 billion over a 10-year period through lobbying and campaign contributions in order to get to the deregulation so that they could end up doing whatever they wanted to do. They did whatever they wanted to do. They put worthless products out onto the marketplace. They created a Ponzi scheme. The bubble burst, and we are in the terrible recession. The idea that any serious candidate for president could say, well, what we need is more deregulation because we really trust Wall Street is beyond comprehension.
Can you characterize that form of thinking? I mean, is it lunacy? Is it idiotic?
No. No, it is not lunacy and it is not idiotic. What it is people who are working, candidates who are working on behalf of Wall Street and the wealthiest people in this country. They do not see their job as look, these are the same people who want to end Social Security and Medicare, make massive cuts in Medicaid and education, while they give tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires. Their job, frankly, is to represent the wealthiest people in this country, which certainly includes Wall Street, and they could care less about the well-being of average Americans. I guess
you're actually referring to Eric Cantor, because he's been dismissing these protesters, as you know. How much longer do you think he can carry on defending the wealthiest people in this society, knowing full well that there are 14 million people out of work, poverty is at record levels, there's a Jobs Act available for passage through Congress, and yet Mr. Cantor has absolutely zero interest in it?
Well, you're exactly right, and that's what the struggle is about. Look, these guys have tremendous amounts of money. They pour huge amounts of money into candidates' campaigns. They lobby very effectively. And what our job is right now is to educate, organize the American people so that everybody understands that these Republicans are in the pocket of big money. They could care less about ordinary people. We've got to throw them out of office. We've got to deal with the Democratic Party, which in my view is much too conservative. We need a progressive agenda which says the government is going to work for all of the people in this country and not just the wealthy and the powerful special interests.
I was shocked, Mr. Sanders, by another line in your piece where you talk about $5 billion being spent by financial institutions to achieve their goal of repealing financial regulations. Right. $5 billion. Can you just reassure me that you're not exaggerating?
No, we are not exaggerating. Over a 10-year period, in their fight to get deregulation, that is how much they spent. And let me give you another fact which may shock the American people. Today, despite the fact that we bailed out Wall Street Martin, because you remember they were too big to fail. 3 out of the 4 largest financial institutions are bigger today than they were before we bailed them out. And altogether, the 6 largest financial institutions have assets that are the equivalent of 60% of the GDP of the United States of America. So you have a handful of entities with enormous economic power, with incredible wealth that gives them tremendous political power. And the struggle now is to take them on. In my view, you got to break them up. You certainly have to bring back significant regulation so that they do not engage in the Ponzi schemes that have led to this recession.
Mr. Sanders, how is it possible that people like Eric Cantor appear to encourage capitalism for everyone until a bank fails and then socialism is acceptable because we have to bail out the banks, we have to support them? But all of us, individual citizens in this society, well, if capitalism swipes us aside, we have to accept that.
That's right. I mean, and as it happens, it's interesting that you mentioned Mr. Cantor, because he is one of the leaders. He was one of the leaders of the bailout of Wall Street. So when the financial institutions, because of their recklessness, illegal behavior, are about to collapse, Eric Cantor is there to provide all the help they need. But when the middle class is collapsing, when small businesses are hurting, in that case, the government should not play any role. In fact, we should move the other way and cut programs that working families and low-income Americans need. Martin, what this is called is socialism for the rich, free, rugged capitalism, and free enterprise for working families.
Just a final question, Mr. Sanders. The President has spent the last few weeks taking this jobs bill to the people, pleading with them to call their congressional members, to make phone calls, send emails, demand that Congress answers why they won't support this bill. But are you going to have any effect here? Because you and I know that with the election coming, many of these Republicans have been absolutely transparent about what their agenda is about. And it's got nothing to do with the unemployed. It's got something to do with one man who is employed. He's in the White House, and they want him out.
Now, I think your characterization of where the Republicans are coming from is exactly right. And what our job is to make sure that everybody in America understands that we right now, and I would go a lot further than Obama does, I must tell you, but we have the capability by rebuilding our infrastructure, transforming our energy system, creating millions of decent paying jobs, which we desperately need when unemployment is as high as it is right now. And the Republicans have zero, nothing to say except the old trickle-down economic mantra, give more tax breaks to billionaires, more deregulation, I guess, of Wall Street, more unfettered free trade, which has already cost us large numbers of jobs. So what we have got to do is make it clear to the American people that this Republican control over the House has been a disaster for our economy and for working families.
Senator Bernie Sanders, as ever, thank you so much for joining us there in your constituency.
Thank you.
Coming up, Rick Perry goes a-hunting